then turn our attention to identifying the causes of those issues. This is really the heart and soul of your entire analysis, because it's here where you're going to actually find out, seek out, and identify what contributes to creating the issues, the challenges, the problems, the questions, the concerns, whatever. Okay, and you're going to find these causes throughout your weeks of analysis when you've looked at external environmental analysis, internal environmental analysis, the functional level strategic management, business level strategic management, and then you look at corporate level strategic management. And within each one of these weeks, you're likely to find contributing factors, causes to the issues you would have identified that are plaguing the firm. Okay, the causes should have a strong link to the issues identified. You should clearly see that this is a contributing factor to that issue. That link should be strong, and I will often ask you in your discussion forums if you think, or what do you think, or how I should say you think these factors, these problems in these weekly analysis that you identify actually contribute to those issues you would have identified in the first week. It's very important that you only identify causes for which you provide solutions for. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you thought one of the major strategic issues that a firm or an organization is facing is in terms of its debt structure. It has exaggerated debt and it has problems in terms of its debt, in terms of how its debt is affecting its current and future profitability. Well, you go on through your analysis. Let's just say you did a corporate strategic analysis, and you realize this firm was heavily diversified into unrelated industries, and we'll talk about that when we do corporate strategy. But suffice to say, this firm was in all of these different types of industries that really didn't have any commonality between and among them. And because of that, the firm found itself spreading itself too thin, was using capital, was borrowing capital it didn't really have, and it couldn't pay back well, and using it to finance these types of unrelated diversification that wasn't giving the firm any type of real benefit. In fact, it was hurting the firm. And that's what you thought was the major cause of debt, of the exaggerated debt, and that's fine. It's absolutely fine. Your recommendation, however, has to specifically address this unrelated diversification problem, right? It has to do with either the firm reduces the amounts of industries it gets out of certain types of industry, it gets into new industries, something that would in some way impact and reduce the problem associated with this unrelated diversification. Too many times I see students creating or suggesting certain causes. For example, they say, one of the biggest reasons the firm has the problems in terms of its low profitability is its lack of international presence, and then none of its solutions in any way addresses this lack of international problem. Well, if you think that that's a major cause, then you're going to have a solution that addresses that cause. It's kind of like the doctor telling you 15 different things that he thinks is contributing to your issues and only trying to address one. You'll leave the office thinking, okay, what about the 14? So you must always, whenever you have a cause, you must find a way to draw a link between that cause and a recommendation that you're making, a specific direct link. And use data if you can to provide evidence of these causes. For example, if I suggest maturity of the industry as a cause for decline in sales or something like that, then I want to show some evidence that this industry is actually in the maturity phase. Maybe the growth has slowed down, maybe the increasing competition. Also, if I think a major cause of my lack of customer loyalty is the fact that I've lost my differentiation appeal. Customers no longer perceive me as being any different than my competitors or substitutes. Well, then I can probably show the increase in the sales, and increase in the popularity of the substitute and competitive products relative to mine, and that'll demonstrate to some extent that I've lost my appeal. So again, where possible, try to get some evidence. Evidence is always key because it helps sell your case. And then once I've completed these identification of causes, I want to go right into my recommendations. I want to say, hey, listen, this is what I'm proposing for this organization in order to address the major causes of the issues that I've identified. That's what they're paying you the big money for. And as I said, in your presentation, the recommendation is obviously, it carries more weight, if you will, than the identification of issues and causes. Not that causes and issues aren't important. Of course they want to know what's wrong, and of course they want to know why you think it's wrong, but they also really want to know what you're going to do to solve it again. And so let's say in your presentation, recommendation probably will take 60 to 65% of your time. Issues and identification of causes will probably take the rest of the time, 35 to 40%. In your report, however, it's a little more skewed towards especially causes, the analytic part. So it'll be probably more balanced, but if not balanced in your report, you'll probably see about 60% more into identification issues and causes. Recommendations about 40%, if not 50-50. Okay, so but in your presentation, recommendations sell. I always think it's best to number each recommendation and to have congruence between them and your causes and your issues. So for example, if you've addressed the first issue with these specific causes, your first recommendation should kind of go in line and be coherent with that. So here's my first issue, here are the causes to the first issue, here's a recommendation one that addresses those causes to the first issue. That congruence. Also, you might want to arrange your recommendations in an order of implementation. So for example, this is something I think the firm should do right away in the short term, in the first or second year. Something I think they should do maybe in the short to medium term, maybe in 2 to 4 years, 2 to 5 years, and something that I think they may want to look at in 5 to 10 years. Now that time frame is relative to industries. I'm using 5 to 10 in, for example, the computer industry, technological industry, telecommunications and what have you. There's no way 5 to 10 years you can wait that long. So the time period differs based upon the volatility, the dynamics of the industry. Okay, very important. For each recommendation, you must first begin with defining what the recommendation is. I can't tell you how many times students start talking about how great this recommendation is and nobody in the audience really knows what they are actually recommending. Say specifically, if you're closing stores, we're closing stores. Okay, say specifically that that's what we intend to do. Okay, and give details of how you propose to. If you're closing stores, what stores are you closing? When are you closing? In terms of staggering, I'm going to close all at one time, or I'm going to close some initially and then close the others. How am I actually going to do it? Discuss the implementation of it. And that's why I said at the beginning, in your issues can be general and strategic, right? But your recommendations, although they address a strategic problem, are often somewhat tactical because you have to demonstrate an actual implementation of a proposal which has a tactical flavor to it, an operational flavor to it. But it is still addressing a strategic issue. Now, by itself, it may not address the whole issue. There might be other things that can go along with it. But for time and for succinctness, you're just going to demonstrate one tactical proposal, if you will. Okay? And so once I've discussed what I'm proposing and how I'm actually going to propose it, my next step is to discuss the benefits of the proposal. Now, students don't often have problems with that because they think their proposal is the most fantastic thing that was ever created. But the problem they do have with it is oftentimes their advantages have nothing to do with actually addressing the causes for which the recommendation is supposed to address. If you've created recommendations and these recommendations do not have a specific link and demonstrate to the audience that they address, rectify, eradicate, eliminate, whatever the causes that you believe are contributing to the issues, then they're not real advantages. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if I, for example, if a doctor has mentioned to me that one of the causes for my illness is a is a brain aneurysm, and he says, okay, you're going to take this drug. If one of the advantages of that drug is it doesn't eliminate my brain aneurysm, then it really is of no benefit to me. So your advantages, as I said, you have to show the audience that your proposal, that the advantage of your proposal are such that are there because they actually rectify, eliminate, or reduce the causes. There must be a link. The benefit of your proposal must be that it addresses effectively the causes. Okay, so you must have that link again. So I know what I'm proposing, I know how I'm proposing it, and I also know the advantages and benefits. And again, those benefits have to be highly correlated with addressing the causes. But beyond that, each recommendation must also address potential negative outcomes or effects of your proposal. Nothing is ever perfect, and so you're always going to have concerns. You should have recognized already in strategy that we're all about trade-offs. If I choose to do something, it essentially means I've chosen not to do something else. And so I have to address the negative outcomes or the potential cons associated with a proposal. Let's say, for example, we went back to closing stores. That was my proposal. What could be a con associated with closing stores? Well, I lose that revenue. I lose that revenue stream that comes from those places that I'm closing, those storefronts that I'm closing. And I have to deal with that negative outcome, and I have to address that, which is very important. You just don't state the negative aspect of your proposal and just keep going. No, you must address it effectively in order to dispel any kind of concern that the audience may have as to the disadvantages associated with your proposal. So you just don't say, well, yes, hey, stores, we're closing them down, that's bad. Well, no. How am I addressing this in my proposal? How will I address it? Well, it may be that, okay, we are closing down stores and there may be potential loss of revenue, but that revenue was not actually creating profitability, because the stores that we're actually closing are unprofitable stores with very small or very low likelihood of ever becoming profitable. And in order to compensate for those loss of sales and actually expand our present sales, we're going to try to funnel those lost sales onto an online portal. Okay, so I've addressed the negative outcomes effectively there with an argument, with an effective argument. But words and passionate appeals are not enough, which is why you have to show people the money. They will not be swayed just by a great strategic argument. So where possible, where feasible, you want to demonstrate financial validity for your proposal, for your recommendation. What does that entail? Any kind of tool that will allow you to demonstrate or forecast cash flows relative to operating expenses and initial investment. I want to see, based upon the lifetime of this project, what I'm likely to get at the end of its tenure. That's what you want to do. Now, normally we use something called a net present value analysis. You can also use EVA. There are other tools available, but where you want to demonstrate, again, the financial validity, where feasible. I am willing, and also our finance professors are willing, to go into details with respect to that with you in order to help you. But it's very important. Now, we recognize because of your limited resources, you're not going to be able to find all the financial data, and sometimes just because of the newness of your proposal and also because of the complexity of your proposal, you're not always going to have the best numbers or numbers at all. But that's why we try to use as much as possible assumptions. We try to use comparative data, meaning looking at other companies that are similar, looking at other types of projects that are similar, and we make do with what we have. Does that question the accuracy and credibility? Absolutely. But this is more of an exercise to demonstrate that you are responsible for our financial validation rather than trying to get most accurate financial information. Okay? So just to review, each recommendation should begin with a definition and detail of your proposal. You go in after that to discussing the benefits and advantages, and again, that must be directly rooted and correlated to the causes. And you finish with your negative outcomes, not just stating them, but creating and discussing good, effective arguments to dispel their negativity. Hi everyone, this is your framework for your presentation, your report for your